Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So wanted to show you my updated build for Fiendsmith Azamina White Forest. I have tweaked it quite a bit from the initial build that I showed off. The main difference is actually going to be down here in the extra deck. Quite a few differences here. I did ultimately, unfortunately, cut the Ultimaya Zulkin. I'm definitely willing to try this card again. I love Ultimaya Zulkin. I think it's really cool. But it and Crystal Wing did just eat up a little bit too many extra deck slots with that combo line. I do still think it's a great combo line, and the number of disruptions that it can put on board as opposed to a build like this is definitely higher. But I think also it's important to have other extra deck options for things beyond like the turn 1 combo line, right? But Ultimaya Zulkin still, I think, is a very, very cool card for this deck, and one I would like to try to fit in still in the future. But we are on less synchros as a result. I don't think we had room for Baron de Fleur last time, so I have definitely made sure to include her here. We are still retaining the Fiendsmith package, so here's the thing, right? I think that without the Fiendsmith package, we could definitely fit Ultimaya Zulkin. And I think that Azamina White Forest without Fiendsmith is an idea that's definitely worth exploring. But this is something that came up a lot in the comment section of the last video. Everyone was like, why don't you play this extra deck card? Why don't you play this extra card? Why don't you play this extra deck card? And it's like I said in the video, it's like I don't have room because there's only so many slots. I think the only reason the number of comments that effect got to me is because it's like, okay, did any of you watch like the first few minutes of the video? Because I talk about this, but anyway. So yeah, like I said, we are really slimming down on some of the extra synchro stuff that isn't like super 100% necessary. Did put in the Guardian Chimera as well as, of course, the Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. Again, the reason I was not playing this before was for extra deck space. And, you know, honestly, after playing with it, I'm probably just about to cut it for Morian again. Morian is another disruption option that you can set with the Diabell Star that doesn't require you to have an extra deck card like Chimera. Granted, of course, Guardian Chimera's effect is a lot more powerful than changing a monster face down, but I gotta level with you, this just did not come up for me a lot, or pretty much ever. And I think I really do value that extra deck space as opposed to having a little bit better of an extension on one of the like 4 or 5 different things I'm ending on, right? So, yeah, I don't think it's bad though, that's for sure. That's just kind of how I feel about the deck. My initial build was also over 40 cards. I had some more copies of Triple Attack, and I think a second draw on Lockbird as well. But I decided to just trim it down to 40, just to make sure that we were staying consistent. Also, we're only playing 1 Stellar this time. We were on 3 in the previous build. Stellar is a really weird card in that way, because she's a 1.5 card combo, right? Like, if you open her, she's very, very good at starting plays. But if you don't open her, then you don't actually really need her for like the combo line at all. It's a very weird card. There aren't many decks that have engine pieces like that are starters and only starters exclusively. They don't have like any other function. So that's why we're only playing a single copy of a Stellar is still a great card. And actually she does have another function in this build in particular. Because with the Fiendsmiths, right, we're looking to go into Beatrice. And then Beatrice we can actually dump a Stellar. And then we can link into Sprite Elf to bring back a Stellar. But I gotta love with you too. This also never came up for me, actually just going Fiendsmith line into Beatrice and to dump Elf, which really kind of makes me question how warranted the Fiendsmith engine is, kind of circling back to the first thing I was talking about, how Azamina White Forest is definitely worth exploring. But I think even if the Fiendsmith engine doesn't always get you something super tangible, like starting your whole combo line, it does still help you play through a lot of disruption from your opponent. This is a very interesting deck, because this is a deck at Fiendsmith Azamina White Forest, or Azamina White Forest in either way. This is a deck where more than others, the deck building phase super matters, right? And that goes for literally every single deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? If you ever heard the phrase that somebody misplayed the deck building phase, that means that they just didn't build their deck properly. But a deck like this is so... There's not really one proper build, right? There's just a bunch of pros and cons to playing certain things and not playing other things, which I find fascinating. It's why I love deck building so much, but yeah. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this build for now. Why don't we break it down card by card, and then we'll look at some gameplay. We're on 1 Fabled Lurie, 1 Droll Lockbird, 2 Maxi, 1 Esteller of the White Forest, 3 Elzette of the White Forest, 1 Elzette Azamina of the White Forest, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Sylvie of the White Forest, 1 Rushia of the White Forest, 3 Molcharmi Fuelos, 2 Fiendsmith Engraver, 3 Diabell Star the Black Witch, 1 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Tales of the White Forest, 1 Fiendsmith's Tract, 1 The Hallowed Azamina, 3 Deception of the Sinful Spoils, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 1 Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, 1 Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and finally 1 Woes of the White Forest. There's our main deck. For the extra, we're on 1 Fiendsmith's Lacrima, 1 Azamina Ilia Sylvia, 1 Azamina Mu Rishialago, 1 Guardian Chimera, 1 Silvera Wolf Tamer of the White Forest, 1 Rashila Sinister Soul of the White Forest, 1 Diabell Queen of the White Forest, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Beatrice Lady of the Eternal, 1 Fiendsmith's Requiem, 1 Sprite Elf, 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Moon of the Closed Heavens, 1 Fiendsmith's Sequence, and finally 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. That's going to do it for our list. Let's look at this gameplay. Alright, our first opponent for this video is going to be Runic Stun. By the way, this is another game where we lose all of the coin flips. So, look forward to that. Runic Stun. Wow, it's been a long time since I've faced Stun in particular, especially this variant, but I am at Master 5, so I guess that does kind of make sense. You tend to run into decks like Stun most often when you're at like a floor of a rank, like 5, like Master 5, Diamond 5, etc. So let's see, what do they do here? They went Time-Tearing Morganite into the Clockwork Knight, which is, of course, a floodgate in and of itself. It actually does matter for us here because, of course, our Fiendsmith stuff does the Light Fiend monsters in particular, right? With a bunch of back rows, so definitely more than a little bit scary. We're going to lead with the Engraver nevertheless here, going for the Fiendsmith's Tract. Tract F, we can add and then discard the Lurie. Even if I can't go into Fiendsmith stuff off of this, we can still get some bodies on the board. By sending the other Engraver, I can special summon Diabell Star, which could also set up the other Engraver to be summoned from my graveyard, potentially. Here, going for Deception. Deception Tribute the Fuelos for Hallowed Azamina. Honestly, right now, I'm kind of just trying to bait out some of my opponent's back row here. Wasn't expecting this one. Wall of Revealing Light, paying 5,000 life points. So we'll definitely need to remove that before we can hope to swing in for lethal. I'm going to fusion some of the Mu Rishialago. Wanted to see if they had like a skill drain or a rivalry or a goes or something, or like a I guess Tikbu would be fine here. Well, no, because I have all machines, right? So Tikbu would be a floodgate here. But thankfully for me, it doesn't really seem like they have any of that stuff. So here I'm going to make Beatrice and then use the Beatrice effect to dump. I end up just dumping Wanted. Honestly, my main reason for making Beatrice here was actually to get the Wanted draw, just to see if I could top deck into something that could maybe bail me out, but I don't really have high hopes for that. Mostly wanted to have the option to go into Little Knight and be able to activate the Banish effect. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here with Beatrice and Lurie. Between Wall Revealing Light and Clockwork Knight, while Clockwork Knight is annoying, Wall is actually just stopping me from winning, so I'm going to banish that. Unfortunately, this does, of course, come with the caveat that because I activated the SP Little Knight first effect, I can't attack directly this turn, so I can't actually swing in for lethal right now. However, as you can see, we have set quite a few things up for us. We have the Azamina Ilia Sylvia in play to act as an auto negate. SP, of course, could potentially tag out monsters, which could end up mattering. We also have Woes plus Elzette Azamina to potentially go into Sylvia as well. Might also end up mattering. We'll have to see here. course, our opponent gets to draw 2 off the Morganite for a turn. They're going to go Runic Golden Droplets. I'm going to chain the Woes. Now, of course, I know that turning the Runic monster face down won't negate something like Hugin. I still like having the option here, just in case they are going to try to, like, summon something. I knew this was a stun variant. I figured they probably were going to, like, synchro, but... Now here, what they actually went for instead of Hugin was Munin. So I'm guessing maybe they don't have any other Runic cards in hand to, you know, take advantage of with Fountain. But what they're trying to do is gain back their life points and also set up, like, you know, some sort of stalling with the Munin. However, because our Silvera is going to turn the Munin face down, our opponent's not actually able to gain life points off of it. Can also add the Deception here. And then my opponent conceded. I thought that was maybe a little bit early, because my stuff is still weakened, but at the same time, it's weakened by the Clockwork Knight. At the same time, I do have the ability to attack now, and I guess my opponent maybe figured that that alone was enough. I'm trying to think if I would be able to get a monster with over 2,500 attack, or if I could remove the Clockwork Knight. I'm sure I would have figured it out somehow, but a little bit early to concede, but you know what? We'll definitely take it. Especially against something like Stun, I'm not complaining about that. So, alright, there's that first duel. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, our next opponent is going to be on a P.U.N.K Goblin Biker build, but it's not the kind that I've seen before. You'll see what I mean. Again, we're losing the coin flip here, so our opponent's going first, and they are about to absolutely just pop off here, as you'll see in a moment. Gonna lead with the Rhoda. I've got Maxi here, though, so if they do decide to pop off, we have that at the ready. Normal summoning Ken, and then, of course, in response to Ken's effect, I'm gonna go for the Maxi. They're gonna chain E-Telly. And at this point, I was very curious. I was like, okay, what do you got? What do you got? Jewelry Punk Madam Spider, and then Ken summons Gen to my field. Gen forces me to discard. I chose to discard the Engraver here, since I already have Tract in hand and, you know, White Forest stuff. I was a little surprised when they overlaid. I thought maybe they were going to just set the Dangerous Gobu and then pass, but spoiler alert, my opponent's going to just go into their full combo line. And you'll see why here in a little bit. They feel the confidence to do that even under Max C. Alright, so the big Gabonga is going to go for Dung Charger for Grand Entrance. Grand Entrance had Boom Mock. They can then, of course, special summon the Boom Mock. Fulos does not do good with the double draws in a situation where we already have a monster on the field. But Geonator Transverser. When I saw this card, I knew some shenanigans were going down. If you're not familiar with this one, the linked monsters can be destroyed, blah, blah, blah. This effect. If this card points to 2 monsters, you can switch control of those monsters. So some shenanigans are definitely happening here. Zeamine for Ogre Dance. Now they're overlaying Boommock and Zeamine for number 30, Acid Golem of Destruction. So if you're not familiar with this card is a rank 3 that says during your standby phase, detach 1 Exceeds material from this card or take 2,000 damage. You cannot special summon any monsters. While this card has no Exceeds materials, it cannot attack. So now what they're going to do is swap the Acid Golem over to me. So now it's creating a lock on my field saying that I cannot special summon any monsters. It's like a Sanctifier lock with a lot of extra steps. It's just that whole idea, right, of, you know, some cards have they're intended to lock you, the person using them, out of something, but then we have these weird cards like Sanctifier and Geonator Transverser that just totally, like, you know, circumvent that whole thing. I'm a little more fine with something like this because it's a lot less consistent and it's a lot more stoppable with, like, hand traps than something like a Sanctifier lock in Branded. Plus, you know, this lock, which is more easily stopped, is also, like, pretty much the main thing this deck is doing. Whereas, like, Branded can Sanctifier lock and then also is just a fully competent meta deck on top of that, right? Alright, so at some point in there, I kind of glossed over it, but we did end up using Ash Blossom on the Xyz Armor Fortress, meaning that it won't be necessarily disruption during my turn, the full Armored Dark Knight Lancer. They do still have a couple of face downs. We know that one of them is Dangerous Gabu, which can negate monster effects. So, looking at my hand here, we do have some pretty easy outs. If we didn't have Hallowed Azamina in hand, we could use Deception to tribute the Acid Golem and then add Hallowed Azamina, or Azamina LZ if we didn't have that in hand. But we also just have the Fiendsmith Engraver, so I can just tribute some of that. Of course, if I had known what my opponent was going to do, I would not have discarded the earlier Engraver, but they gave us enough draws that we were able to find the other one. And then my opponent's just like, alright, you got it. Which I don't blame them, you know. I definitely don't blame them in this kind of a situation where I have like a million cards in hand. I think maybe they wouldn't have conceded so quickly if I had not max seed and I had just done that, like tribute summoned Engraver, but who knows. Either way, it's unfortunate for them. It's really unfortunate for my opponent because their lock is a pretty solid one, and there are a number of decks where, like, even after drawing this number of cards off Maxi, wouldn't be able to out the Acid Golem on their field. But we just happen to be in a meta with Azamina and Fiendsmith, which can both very easily tribute the Acid Golem away. So, yeah, maybe not the best time to be using this style of a lock deck, but it's a cool concept nevertheless. Anyway, got one more game that we're going to show you before we finish off here. So our final opponent for this video is going to be on Sky Striker. This time, we're losing the coin flip, but that just means we're going to go first, because, well, they're on Sky Striker. So, this one's maybe a little bit cheating, but I never said we were going second every time. I said we lost every coin flip, so technically correct. The best kind of correct. Anyway. Going for Deception here, I decided to just tribute the Fabled Lurie. Like, I could have normal summoned it and maybe done some Fiendsmith stuff, but I could just do Fiendsmith stuff anyway with any two monsters, and I'm going to normal summon Sylvie anyway, so. Besides, even if we're not going to droll in response to a Maxi or Fuelos on our turn, we can still droll during our opponent's turn. I didn't even really assume Sky Striker, even looking at my opponent's cosmetics, it should have been really obvious. But even with their cosmetics in mind, I just thought it was Tenpai. I don't know, I just kind of assumed it was Tenpai. Or rather, I do assume that it's Tenpai pretty much every time I'm made to go first. And, I don't know, like, Sky Striker is cool, but it's definitely not as strong as Tenpai, so I'm like, alright, I'll just brace for Tenpai, and then if it's Striker, that's fine. We'll have an easier time than expected on average. On average is the keynote there. Sky Striker is, of course, a very solid rogue deck. Alright, now that we have the Ilya Sylvie in play, I'm just going to go for my White Forest stuff. I'm not really following a dedicated combo line here. I'm just kind of like freestyling based on what's in my hand. I feel like... Well, I don't know. I could have gone into... Well, we'll see. Anyway, I'm going into Diabel here, right? Adding back Hallowed Azamina, because my other two spell and traps are Wanted and Deception, and I want this extra draw here. Now, from this point, I'm going to go into Rushia, and then activate Deception, send it to draw. That way I can reset it later. Summon Sylvie, then go for Diabel Star. And at this point, I can go into Fiendsmith stuff. And here's a thing where, like, maybe if I was playing something like Desiree, I would have been more incentivized to go into, like, Sequence. But what I'm actually just going to do here is go Requiem for Engraver. And then rather than link these two, I'm just going to sync them for Baron. But that's where I think I maybe made a misplay. Like, I want to think about this for a second, right? Like, okay, if I had linked into Sequence, then I could have, of course, put back Moon of Closed Heaven and Requiem to summon Lacrima. Lacrima bring back Engraver. Then I could have gone into like a 3-material Appaloosa. I already summoned Beatrice? No, I didn't summon Beatrice. That was last game, or one of the other games. Going into Beatrice doesn't really do a lot here, though. So I don't think I would have done that. I guess maybe I could have just made a 3-mat Appo instead of Baron. I gotta live with you. Between 3-mat Appo and Baron, I think I'd rather make a Baron. I like having multiple Omni Negates. I don't think it's, like... I know some people will probably be like, wouldn't you want the 3-mat Apo because it's more negates? But circling back to, again, this is my experience at like upper ranked ladder, and this is also doubly my experience in tournament play. Appaloosa at high level gameplay is 1 negate, if that, I would say 75% of the time. The vast majority of the time, your opponent's just going to out it very quickly. Baron de Fleur with its Omni Negate is much harder to do that with, and when you have multiple Omni Negates, your opponent having a board breaker starts to matter less and less and less. Whereas if I had an Omni Negate and an Apo, then board breakers would be a lot more apt to be good here. And especially in a situation where we're made to be going first, I very much value stopping board breakers over having a 25%, by Rymarf estimate, there's no hard statistics there, percent chance to maybe negate more than 1 monster effect. So that's my reasoning, that's my logic there. And actually, after talking through it, I don't think I made a misplay. I think it's up for debate, but I think I made the correct play. I mean, I made the correct play in hindsight, but I think given the information I had, I still made the correct play. Here they're going to start with Slash Draw, and unfortunately for my Sky Striker opponent, which I now obviously realize what this is, I have just a 1-card stop for them. Ignore my Omni Negates, ignore my Diabell into Silvera turning stuff face down, ignore my Sinful Swirls the White Forest going into Guardian Chimera. We didn't end up needing any of that in order to stop our opponent here. So that's kind of true of all these games. We kind of just like did one thing and then our opponent was like, all right, you got it. So anyway, that's going to be it for these games and for this video. Thank you as always for watching, especially all the way to the end. I really like putting an extra emphasis on this because I feel like it should be that even if you're not joining the YouTube members or subscribing to the Patreon, watching to the end of the video is like still a phenomenal way to support the channel and still one of the best. So I want to thank you very much for that. But that is going to do it for now. So let's move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested in, you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's again free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.